want to know from you how how have you seen this transformation in the industry within Adidas over this time where it went from something small to being the most important thing in the industry?
Yeah. Well, thank you for hosting us. Thanks. It's great to be here at ChangeNOW. Um, you're fully right. That is a totally different game now. The industry has woken up that we are really, the fashion industry, we have a problem. Fundamentally, when you think about it from the different aspects of land use, raw material, the carbon footprint, pesticides, chemicals, we are among the top offenders as an industry. So now that there's a realization, a big trend that everybody wakes up to, we need to change. We need to take big steps. And we as Adidas have been part of the industry, and we believe that as part of the industry, we need to lead the charge. We contributed big time to the waste problem, so we need to come up with big solutions now in order to tackle that.
Yeah. And so let's look at, because I think there's really two aspects, right? So you have this kind of carbon footprint aspect, and then you have everything that I really want to talk about, which is the circular economy and how this contributes. But let's first start with the carbon footprint. So I want to say, what is Adidas doing on this front, and how is this viewed internally?
Yeah. I mean, maybe if you allow me to take a step back, we have, as Adidas, we have a company belief, a core belief, that through sport we can change, we have the power to change lives. And that reflects into a few pillars where we really drive change, and one of these key pillars is actually our efforts behind sustainability. So when you look at that, we have various efforts already going back 20 years in the industry. We've been leading from the beginning. More than 20 years ago when we started that journey to sustainability, really looking at our suppliers, we have the challenge that actually we outsource our suppliers.
Yeah.
So while we in Adidas, we have 60,000 employees, there's probably 1 million people working in the factories producing Adidas product. And so we take that responsibility to go beyond our own direct sphere and work with our suppliers to drive change. So back then we established norms about social and environmental conditions in the factories. We were the first ones to ban PVCs, hazardous chemicals. We were founding members of Better Cotton Initiative, the Leather Workshop, Fair Labor Association, and we've been recognized as by the Dow Jones Sustainability Index for 20 consecutive years to be the leading company in this space.
Yeah.
So coming back to your point of how we look at that, we're trying to look at the overall sphere. How can we actually contribute? How can we look at our environmental footprint end to end? You know, from sourcing materials to production to retail, use and end of life. And that really has three components. The first component, recycled loop. That means how we can take waste and move that to the beginning of the process.
Right.
To really work with waste instead of virgin materials. The second element is how we can take the next step using those recycled materials, but then also creating product that is kind of made for circular economy. And finally, that's a new area, it's a Bionic Loop, is how we can explore totally new territories of biodegradable product.
Okay. So there's a lot happening and a lot of different programs. Okay, so let's start with the first one, which is the recycle loop, right?
Yep.
What does the recycle loop look like at Adidas?
Yeah. So overall, we're adding every year, not we as Adidas, we as society, we're adding 350 million tons of plastic. And only 10% of that gets recycled. Most of that goes into landfills, and 10% of that ends up in the oceans. So if like Bojan this morning is not able to clean all of that with the ocean cleanup, we need to make sure that our oceans are not dying. The UN tells us in 12 years the oceans are dying.
Yeah.
So we have to take responsibility for that one. So the first loop is actually talk about recycled. How can we use materials that come from ocean plastic and bring them back into our product? So when you look at that, we started partnering with Parley for the Oceans. In 2015, we started developing products with them, and we presented the first ever product in this space, our biggest eco-innovation to date, and I brought some goods. So here it is.
These are.
That was the first prototype. That was the first prototype made out of a gill net to really be presented as a statement of intent. And from then on, from 2015, by now we have made 11 million pairs of shoes using Parley for the ocean plastic.
Yeah.
On top of that, by now, also in apparel, this year we will have 24 million pieces that use Parley in apparel or in shoes.
So clothes also that are made from plastic.
Exactly. So using that recycled ocean plastic and using that. But you know, we are a big company, and we also need to look at scale. So what we've done now is we're scaling this with something that's called Prime Blue.
Yeah.
That uses Parley for the ocean plastic, but then adds additional recycled ocean plastic to the mix to really achieve a scale in the supply chain.
And so then you're talking about the base material that you're using for the clothes, for the shoes,
Absolutely.
for everything that Adidas
Absolutely.
is making.
And it's highly functional product. It does the job, right? I mean, it's doing exactly what you expect from a sports product.
And this is amazing because, you know, we talked about this last year.
Yeah.
There was, for anyone who was here last year, we also had a presentation from Adidas. There was a different version of this shoe and looking at how this was made, and that the amazing part about Parley was not just that it came from a recycled material, which technologically in and of itself I think is quite amazing, but that beyond that, they were the fastest selling shoes that Adidas has ever had. And that's a really big testament, I think, to where the market is today, how aware consumers are about what Adidas is doing and how important this is in the environment. So this is the first generation, right? This is we take materials we recycle them and we turn them into shoe. So when I go and I put on my Adidas sneaker, I'm using plastic that's been thrown away by someone somewhere.
You're not creating new waste.
No new waste. All right.
Yeah, but that's only the first step, and you talked about it. There's a consumer engagement as part of that one. It's about how do our consumers, how does it resonate with the consumer? How do consumers actually embrace this type of product? Because there's a huge element of education we need to do there. So looking at that, we looked at our overall end-to-end environmental footprint, as I mentioned before, right, from beginning to the end. And we realized the next step for us needs to be, how do we actually create product for more of a circular economy in mind.
So you're talking about from where you're sourcing, right? So this goes from the very beginning of we're getting our raw materials through this supplier past here, processing, and then till the final stage of showing up in the, showing up, being sold, and then also then moving on, having its life, being its shoe or its product or whatever you're wearing, until the end. And so this is the next.
That's the next step.
That's the next step.
So that piece is about how do we create product and design product that is made to be remade. When you think about it, a sports shoe, it consists of different materials, right? The outsole, the laces, the upper material. It uses glue. It's actually quite difficult to recycle that product. So the challenge that we had to overcome was, how can we create the first performance shoe? Like a true running shoe you can run in, it doesn't fall apart, right? It really performs, but it is made out of one single material. No glue, one single material. And that's actually what I'm having on my feet right now. This is full of product presentation here. That's the second generation of this shoe, where we actually take the product and we're able to take this back to create a new product. So how this works is, I'm wearing this shoe, at one point it's worn out. So then this product is returned. The product will be actually ground up. It will be cleaned, it will be ground up. It will be melted together, and you can create a totally new product, zero waste. No waste at all. It's fully recyclable at the end of the life cycle.
So then so we take the Parley, right? This is coming from a recycled material. You make it, instead of the Parley shoe, you make this new shoe with those recycled materials. You wear it. When you're done, it's worn out. You give it back to Adidas, or you bring it back to your office, and you transform it into a new shoe.
And that's exactly the challenge when you think about it. Think of a consumer. We need to educate the consumer that you're not taking this somewhere and throw it away. Bring it back. So it's an element of education with the consumer, but also we need to build an infrastructure of actually allowing the product to return to us so that the loop can be closing.
Because this is the first time that they're doing this, right? There's not a lot of companies that are talking about taking back their products and then remaking them into something else. So how are you engaging? Because this is a huge change, right? This is a change for Adidas, but this is a huge change when you're looking at I don't know how many consumers you have, right? But you have a huge number of consumers.
Yes.
So how do you share this information? How do you get people to actually make the effort to bring these shoes back and have this awareness in their own behavior?
It is a huge element of reinventing our own business model. So we look at business models that actually allow this to happen. So in the UK right now, we're having a program called Infinite Play. Infinite Play simply means that it's a trade-in program. So you're able to send back Adidas product, not only recycled product, any Adidas product, you can send it back. The product will be received, it gets cleaned, it might get repaired. Only if it's totally worn out, it will be recycled, so it doesn't go into the ocean. But these products will be coming back. You can trade in, right? You get a voucher and you can buy something else, but you're giving the product a second life. So we're extending the life cycle.
They're kind of, that they're doing this, it's of course good, but in addition, then they're also getting a voucher. So they can do something else, they can get something else from Adidas, and they can work through. How is it working so far?
It's working very well. We test this, obviously. So we have a pilot out there, as I mentioned, in the UK. We're taking the learnings. It's not something we talk about broadly yet, but it's something really to test and to validate the business model. So I believe in the next few years, like we scaled up some of the products with Parley, we'll be able to scale this up into a program. It's not perfect yet, but every iteration, we're trying to make it better.
Getting better.
Exactly.
And is this, because it's a bit like the 3D printing, no? It's, you take one material, and you put together a shoe.
Absolutely, and it's the same material.
And it's a high-performing shoe, right?
Exactly.
This is not a compromise in terms of the quality of the shoe. It's not a compromise in terms of performance. This is it, and this is the future of what Adidas will create.
That's part of the future, yes. But there's more. So we have that third pillar I was talking about, Bionic Loop, and now it gets a bit nerdy, gets a bit techy. So we had a dress out there, a tennis dress, in our collaboration with Stella McCartney. So we have the Adidas Stella McCartney biofabric tennis dress. It's a micro silk and cellulose-based yarns, and those contain ingredients like water, yeast, sugars, like fully renewable resources.
Yeah.
And to create a product that actually is right now just at the beginning. It's a prototype, and I brought it for you. So
this is, I want to see.
Yeah, so how do we do this? Before we can unpack this, the gloves. So this is out of the Adidas archive.
This is amazing.
We don't do this for show here, but actually because it's a prototype.
You have the wrong one. Hang on.
Doesn't matter. It
doesn't matter.
It's okay. So
branded gloves.
So it's from the Adidas archive. I want you to unpack it. Go ahead.
Okay. This is very exciting. I feel like I'm getting a present. All right. I don't know if I can put this down. I'm going to keep it here, just in case. All right.
So this product, again, it's far from being really commercially available. But if you think about this product, a product that can be performing, it can be worn. At the end of the life cycle, it will completely biodegrade, 100%. So as I mentioned before, if we're not able to catch a product, it's made from nature, it can go back to nature. So the future that we believe in, that we're working on, is really coming up with new solutions that are using natural ingredients to really come up with fabrics that perform in a sports environment. But at one point, you can simply make sure they're biodegrading completely, no harm done.
And this is also from recycled material?
It's also, no, this is a different approach.
Newly created.
This is newly created, but natural materials, really using basic ingredients that are out there in nature, they're growing as part of agriculture.
Hence biodegradable.
Yeah.
So this is, you've taken all of these natural ingredients and made a very tiny tennis dress.
Yes, and as I said, it's a prototype.
Smaller than me.
So it's not yet at where we want it to be, but we'll be getting there. Right now, if you would wear this and would play tennis, it might fall off at one point, but at one point we'll get to the point where the dress will perform 100%.
And then when I've won my tennis tournament with this dress, then
we'll come cheer.
Then it's biodegradable.
It is biodegradable.
So if it doesn't go back into the circular, so let me go back. I want to recap this, because there are phases, right? Of all this is all happening in parallel, but it's the first starting point. So that the shoe and the Parley and this whole movement and your jackets,
Hoodie as well, yeah.
and these materials that are coming from the plastic that are collected from the oceans, that are coming from other natural products or things that have been wasted, that we're giving it a second life and saying we're going to recycle this into a product. This was one, right? This is the Parley. This
That was the first step.
is done. This is our good on the market. We have it. It's successful. And then we move on to the second step, which is we do this, but by the way, then we take it again and we put it full circle into
new
shoes that can be made and remade and remade and remade. And those materials can be created into new things.
Absolutely.
So you get your shoes, or I can remake a jacket, or I can remake anything that's coming from these recycled materials.
And there's three elements to it, as we talked about, like the innovation on the product side. On top of that, really to be able to scale, right? Because already now, today in 2020, 50% of our product uses recycled polyester. 50%, more than 50%. And where we want to go to as the future is that we get to a point of 100% using recycled polyester in our product. So any product that has polyester in there will not use virgin polyester, will not create more waste, but will use materials that are already out there, recycle them and make them part of new product. And that's huge, because I mean, it's tough to imagine sometimes when we're dealing with these magnitudes. We do today 900 million pieces a year. 900 million pieces and pairs of apparel and shoes, and all of them, where it's technically feasible, all of them will be made with recycled polyester.
And how are you developing this technology? Where is this is kind of this internal drive to make all of this? These are things that you all have been working on for a while. How does this work? You have labs, you have centers, how does it?
Yeah, and it became a topic that it started as projects, but actually we want to move beyond projects. I mean, this is now embedded in how we run the end-to-end process, how we create product, how we come up with innovation. Our employees are massively engaged in this one. So next to all the things I talked about, the employees take great pride in these initiatives. Everybody's behind it. We have plastic-free offices, and our employees are writing books about how you can live a plastic-free life. So it goes beyond just purely being something we do as a company, but how can we engage our employees? How can we engage our consumers to really define the future of our industry?
No, and this is a future. I mean, this is a future you're describing of no new waste. There's nothing coming out that's wasteful. This all goes back in, and in case we have consumers that don't bring it back into the cycle, it's biodegradable, right? So then it really does go back into nature.
Yes.
Right?
And let's be clear. I mean, what we're talking about partly is future, right? We know we're not perfect. We're on a journey here, and in many cases we're at the beginning of the journey only, but we're really committed to make this work. And we are by nature, as a sports company, very competitive, but in this space, in this journey, we're all together. So we're actually quite happy for any company, any brand that joins this, if we can set an example and drive positive change, and others join in. We're all partners, we're not competitors.
Yeah, no, and these are some amazing developments. And so, all right, so this is the future, and are there targets? Where do you want to bring these different products, or where things stand in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
The first moonshot we have is that, as I mentioned, by 2024 we want to be fully recycled in polyester. But then also the topic we talked about, how we engage the consumer, how we make them aware of not only our eco-innovation, but also how they can apply this to their own life and remove plastic, from their lives. How we can engage consumers through our Run for the Oceans, where last year alone, more than 2 million consumers ran 12 million kilometers with us as one movement. It starts to really become a mass movement. So as I mentioned, any consumer we can pull in on a journey, any partner, any other brand, and many of them are here today. So how we can all join this effort together, that will be the future for us. We will not stop.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And then it's also a way you're bringing in your client base, right? So these are the sports aficionados of the world, and giving them access to products that are really good quality, sustainable products. And in the meanwhile, then attracting obviously new climbers, pushing the envelope a little more also for the industry and where it's going, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, we can come back next year and talk about progress.
Exactly.
But in the meantime, I'll have to take the dress back to the archive, so
Yes.
you can't go home play tennis.
And next year, could you bring one a little bit bigger?
Yeah, I'll work on that.
And that I don't have to wear gloves to wear.
Awesome.
Is amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
All right.